Hi, everybody. My name is Marr Brown, and I have a very deep passion for helping people uncover, unlock, and unleash their potential. And I do that through a myriad of ways in terms of being a motivational speaker, a coach, a consultant, and also in roles in corporate America from national sales director, VP of sales, and other titles I've held. But what we're doing right now, my good friend Peter Clark Nelson and I are introducing a tremendous course called Love Your Legacy Now. And it's all about how do we help you to live, but go beyond living into loving your legacy for your life. And we wanted to take a few of the modules that are part of the e-course, is going to be released next month, and give you a flavor as to what's actually in the course so that you can hopefully get inspired to not only love your legacy now, but then to ultimately participate and take part in the course when it comes out in September. Today we're going to talk about a very, very important and significant subject, and that is tribal shaming. And we're going to talk all about it, what it is, and a couple of ways to effectively handle it, deal with it, and then come out on the other end feeling good about yourself and what you've accomplished. And so before we dive into the tribal shaming content, I want to introduce you to my good friend and collaborator, Peter Clark Nelson, who will tell you a bit more about himself. Peter?
What's going on, Jamar? And welcome everybody to this latest video in the Love Your Legacy Now series. Obviously, this isn't the e-course. These are just little vignettes that we want to talk about some of the subjects, as Jamar said, and give people a taste of what the book and the e-course is going to be about. Just real briefly, my background is for 20 years, I've worked with subject matter experts, professional athletes, entrepreneurs on how to unleash your inspired voice, how to align the essence and the energy of your message with the heart of your audience. And really, for me, my career has shifted over the years, particularly from being out of balance, where I had an enormous amount of success perceived from the outside world, to being completely miserable on the inside, to making some adjustments and changes on that to become more at peace with who and what I am, and to balance not just the idea of success from an outside perspective, but being able to enjoy it and to find my own sense of self-worth. And so during that journey, I've been subjected to and I've experienced all forms of tribal shaming, some of which were very subtle and some that were not so subtle and were very painful for me to have to move through. So this module and this particular video, Jamar and I are going to build on the subject that we talked about in the previous one on tribal shaming, give some examples as to what it is, even more so than what we previously talked about, and some ways in which you might be able to navigate that experience.
Absolutely. And Peter, thanks a lot for your introduction and really touching on what the subject matter is all about in this course, tribal shaming. And I think, why do we choose tribal shaming? Well, in terms of being able to love your legacy and to do the things that are in your heart and your soul to do, and to step outside, the fear and even the anxiety in terms of what it takes to break beyond who you currently are to really unleash who you're supposed to be, which is your inspired voice, achieving the goals you have in your life, your ambitions, and things like that. It's going to change certain aspects of your life. And one of the aspects that will be affected is literally the people that you are around. Now, Peter has a really elegant way of explaining what tribal shaming is. And I would really encourage you to look at the other video that we did on tribal shaming, because he went into a really, really good explanation of it. From my perspective, to simplify it, is essentially we are all part of a group of people, whether you're in a company, your friendship group, you might be in a church group, you might be in a golf club, whatever the case may be. And group exists because what? People kind of speak the same language, they say the same things, have the same values, and do the same things within the group. But in a situation where you want to really sort of step out and do something that is outside of the group, for example, when I wrote my first book, I was in corporate America and I wrote a book, and I was the only person in my peer group that had written a book. And there were some things I experienced in terms of that transition from just being known as a corporate person to now I'm an author. Let's say that you want to start your own business and the people around you don't have their own business. And so sometimes what can happen is that people's perceptions of you can change, or even your perception of yourself can change. And all of a sudden you find yourself doing things that are outside of the norm of the group. And there's a whole myriad of things that happen as a result of that. There can be what's considered pure shaming, which is people telling you you should not do it. you're wrong, you're going to fail. It could be covert or overt. It could be, sometimes that people completely kick you out of the peer group because you're no longer representing what that group is all about. And we're talking about from a positive standpoint when you want to live your entire inspired voice, not any sort of negative things that somebody may do outside of the norm of a group or a tribe. And so that's essentially, sort of my elementary explanation of what tribal shaming is. And the reality is that whenever you set out to do something in your life, there are going to be people that are close to you, could be family or friends or coworkers, that make you feel uncomfortable or make you feel unworthy, or not make you, they could make you feel that way if you allow it, if you don't take the coaching that Peter and I are going to give you about how to deal with it. And all of a sudden you find yourself feeling like you're on an island, you're a castaway, and the pull to go back to the norm is so strong that a lot of people, when they set out to do something they truly want to do, and they are experience tribal shaming or but people, or people that tell them they shouldn't do it, they can tend to fall back to their old ways of doing things and live a life of misery and regret, knowing that they're not doing the things that they are really being called to do. And so if that's the case, then Peter and I said, why don't we address that in this e-course and then provide a couple of short videos to help people deal with where they're at if they're dealing with tribal shaming currently, if they've dealt with tribal shaming in the past and now they understand what it is, or if they say, I can see myself dealing with tribal shaming because I want to go out and unleash my inspired voice. So with that as a backdrop, Peter, kind of give us your perspective on tribal shaming and some ways that people can deal with it effectively, and number one, not let it affect them and take them down a path that takes them further away from who they're supposed to be in this world.
Well, thanks, Jamar. First of all, great explanations, excellent examples. I think one of the things that you touched on, which I think is really important, is that the idea between doing something that's positive in nature for your personal growth as opposed to doing something that's negatively driven. Like if somebody's acting out and doing things that are causing what is generally, harm to another human being or to a group of people, then yes, you need to address that and perhaps, remove those individuals from your life, from the group, and so on and so forth. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. The problem with that is, what is somebody's definition of doing harm? So we have to understand that regarding tribal shaming is that it is about betrayal. It is about abandonment. The most basic level forming of shaming is that you abandoned me, you betrayed me, or you abandoned us and you betrayed us. So you went against the code of ethics, you spoke out, or you did something that you weren't supposed to do. So to understand the construct of tribal shaming, we talked about it in the last video, it's systemic, and it is the single most destructive characteristic of humanity. So if it's systemic and it's that destructive, why isn't it talked about more often? Well, it is, but it's given in different names. But one of the primary reasons why it's not addressed directly like you and I are addressing it in this video, and we go even more in depth in the course, is because of what tribal shaming is actually protecting. Now, we talked about previously, it's protecting the status quo, and yes, it is. Status quo is different, right? Status quo for one group versus another group. You got the micro level aspect of it, like in a department of a company, and then the macro level, which is the whole company. Society, same thing, right? So what exactly are you protecting? Tribal shaming is protecting our addiction to pain and suffering.
Interesting.
Pain and suffering to stay confined to a set of rules and ideologies and beliefs that just simply do not fit. They do not work anymore. And there's the examples are literally, we could be on here for days talking about different examples. So I invite the people watching this to, if you want to learn more about it, you'll be signing up, of course, for the e-course in September and getting the book. But any of the subjects that Jamar and I briefly address today on this video, we invite you to do a little bit of research, not just within your own experience in your own life, because every one of us has been subjected to tribal shaming, and every one of us has played the other role of the shamer. But we also invite you to look at society, look at some of the examples. And I'm going to give a little bit more examples as this video goes on. But for that, at this particular point, I just want to simply say that what tribal shaming is protecting is an addiction to pain and suffering, which is then rooted in unworthiness that we don't deserve, or that society does not deserve, to rise above its limits and to allow the individuality of each of us to rise and to expand. I mean, let's face it, we're all progressing. Let's not stunt our growth anymore. Let's support, celebrate, and acknowledge one another's growth rather than being jealous or fearful or intimidated by somebody breaking the limits that, you know, we have all believed are part of life. Life, the limits and the rules are designed to be broken and bent.
Wow. You know, Peter, I couldn't have said it better myself. And you know me, I like to really look at real life examples and then correlate that to business in our discussion. I remember, and you know, my daughter Alexis really well. And, you know, her first year ever playing lacrosse 3 years ago, she made the all-star team. So she got really good really fast and was playing at high school level games and on high school level teams when she was literally 11 years old. And I remember I would watch her practice sometimes, and I knew how fast she was. I knew how good she was, but she would let other girls beat her. She would sort of hold back and not run as fast as she could or not show her true skills. One day I asked her, I said, Alexis, why are you holding yourself back? And she said, well, because one of the girls said, basically, you know, Alexis, you know, why do you always have to win? Why do you have to be so fast? Why do you have to always show your talents? Basically, it's telling her you need to conform and be average so that I feel good about myself and you don't stand out. What I had to explain to her is that everybody has these gifts and talents that were given to us to what? To unleash unto the world. And so to your point about pain and suffering, what I try to impress upon people is that when you have something that you're being called to do, when you have a gift or a talent, it's like that silent voice of distinction that's in you, and it gets louder and louder and louder. And sometimes we try to suppress that voice. Why? To conform to the people around us for whatever reason. We don't want to stand out. You know, somebody says something negative to us, and all of a sudden we feel guilty that we have talent. We feel unworthy, or whatever the case may be. All the things that are counterproductive to being who you're supposed to be. So I had to have that conversation with her. Unfortunately, she learned to really sort of unleash her gifts and talents. And she learned that by doing that, it wasn't a detriment to other people or to the team. It was actually a benefit to the team because the entire team elevated, and she was able to teach other people what she could do and how to do it. And her team went on to be very, very successful. And now she's, you know, on the high school team as a freshman. And so the same thing happens in life and in business. When you have a certain voice that's inside you to do something, and for Peter and I, we both have written several books. You know, we've developed several programs. We've done some things to really inspire the world. But guess what? There was a lot of tribal shaming that happened along the way. It wasn't like we got up, oh, we're going to write a book and wrote a book and everything was great. You had to deal with the sense of unworthiness, the sense of potential failure, the sense of what are other people going to say, the sense of people around you, not the sense, but the reality of people around you questioning what you're doing and why you're doing it. But at the end of the day, we both said we are going to live according to our purpose. We're going to love our legacy. We're going to unleash our gifts and talents into the world. And we're going to be a bridge for other people that are going through it. And one way that we're doing that is to explain how tribal shaming works and how to get through it. So those are a couple of real world examples of the effects of tribal shaming. Just imagine if my daughter, I say, you know what, I'm going to suppress myself for the rest of my life. Because it's not just sports, right? It happens in life. You get into a habit of suppressing yourself, and the pain and suffering is very intense for you personally because you're holding that creative energy back. And I'm sure that's what some people are feeling as they're sitting here watching this, Peter, and thinking, you know what, Marr and Peter are saying something that's really striking a chord, a nerve in me. And really that nerve is because that voice inside you is begging to come out, begging you to unleash it. And we're just hoping and praying that through this course and through these videos that you follow us on our journey to unleashing your gifts and talents, break free from tribal shaming, and to become the person you're meant to become and loving the legacy that you truly want in this world, not the legacy that other people define for you. And so that's what I would say about, you know, my perspective on tribal shaming in this video. We're going to do a lot more, but in this video right here, I wanted to share that with everybody, you know, Peter. So Peter, how about, you know, one last perspective on it, and then maybe talk about the course and the book that's going to come out, and then we'll wrap up.
Absolutely. And great examples, you know, about Alexis and things that she's doing. And it's very inspiring. And I can certainly relate to that in various levels of my own life. One thing I do want to mention real quickly before I make a final point and talk about the e-course, you know, as I was saying earlier, that this is a subject that is pervasive. So why is it not spoken about as often? Well, we've talked about it, but we're not the only ones who discuss this. You know, going back, what is it, almost 12 years ago, you and I were discussing this subject. Absolutely. And we talked about that in the last video. a gentleman by the name of Dr. Marr Martinez, who has discussed this and done a lot of studies on the effects of tribal shaming on our physical bodies. You know, because you look at diseases, you look at illnesses, you look at injuries, things that happen that might seem to just have nothing to do with the way our mental and emotional state of mind is, but it has everything to do with it. And he's made tremendous strides in correlating that. Another person that made this very popular recently is author Elizabeth Gilbert, who is well known for doing the book Eat, Pray, Love.
Right. Great.
You know, a lot of people know me for writing very long articles and posts on Facebook.
Right.
Elizabeth, a couple years ago, wrote, I think, probably the longest post I've ever seen on Facebook. And it is perhaps one of the most important anybody would ever read. She basically took the information from Dr. Marr Martinez from an interview, and she wrote this long piece about how it's affected her. She gave examples of it. And I think one of the things that the reason I'm saying this is the more that we can become public in talking about this, the less it is the elephant in the room.
Right.
So this is one of the reasons why what you and I are doing and what we would invite others to be a part of is because even though Love Your Legacy Now has 9 modules and covers a lot of different subjects, none might be more, you know, none are more important than tribal shaming. And it's because when it comes to being successful in life, when it comes to enjoying your life and loving your legacy, we are going to have to face tribal shaming at some point. And it's going to likely come from people that we trust, people that we love. These are people that we are unconsciously going to end up betraying, and we're going to end up abandoning because we are making decisions to move into another area of our life. We invite these people to join us. We invite people to rise. But if somebody chooses to stay within the confines of their own belief systems or stays within a company, that's fine. That's their choice. But as a society, is it not to our benefit to celebrate other people rising? Is it not to our benefit to acknowledge other people's courage and strength to break the status quo? Should we not provide them at the very least the opportunity to go after their dreams rather than try to tear them down to make ourselves feel better? You know, people look around the world right now and you see a lot of crazy shit happening. Absolutely. Where do you think that's coming from? That's coming from people who are romanticizing the past without recognizing the pain and the suffering and the importance of letting go of ideologies and beliefs that just don't support us anymore.
Absolutely.
So tribal shaming is a very important piece. The more we can talk about it, the more we can talk about it, the more people are aware of it. And we invite people to share this in the thread here with this video. Share this on your wall. And when this course is ready to launch in September, we would invite you all to be a part of that, because we're going to take you on a journey that is going to radically and positively change your world for the better.
Well, and Peter, incredible words. What I will say is this: if you're not inspired, or at least your mind isn't tickled by what you've heard, you know, in this video from Peter and I, or other videos, then, you know, let me just say this: there's some incredible things that if you really listen to what we're saying, hear the stories, apply the concepts, and most importantly, I would say that we invite you to join our tribe. You know, Peter and I have been on the same tribe for years. We're giving you a glimpse into discussions that we have on a consistent basis for the last 15 years that we'd never recorded. And we always said we should record our conversations because these are the things that we talk about. And so if this resonates with you, if you go, yeah, I'd like to have that type of encouragement, that type of information, I'd like to sort of follow that type of doctrine in terms of how to break free from the chains of the past and move forward with your life and achieve what you want to achieve, then we invite you to join us as part of the e-course, to watch the videos, to ask questions, to share, to get involved. Because one of the things we'll talk about, and that is, as you leave a certain tribe for whatever reason, and really the reason is because you're trying to elevate, you will find other tribes that are where you were at. And so you will always land somewhere that is where you were at that point and where you want to go. And Peter and I are part of that tribe we like to invite you to be a part of. So with that said, Peter, thank you very much. As always, every time you talk, I learn something. I'm inspired. It's exciting. Everyone, thanks for watching this video. Please check out all the other videos. There's some really exciting topics that we talked about. Be on the lookout for the e-course in September. Love Your Legacy Now. But also really like this video and share it, post it on your wall, as Peter said. And let's get the conversation going. Let's get other people through the difficulties of tribal shaming and onto the benefits of really living and loving the legacy that you really want in this world. Everybody, thank you very much. Thank you for watching the video, and we'll talk to everybody very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.